So we are going to get started in just a moment. Welcome, everyone. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Welcome, welcome, everybody, to this week's Live Well Live webinar, all about yo-yo dieting. Weight on, weight off, weight on, break free of the cycles. That's what we're going to hopefully support you with today. My name is Dr. Samantha Weller-Pilley. I am one of the GPs here at Boots Online Doctor, and I am joined by my colleague Ruth. We are part of the lifestyle medicine team here at Boots Online Doctor, and we are dedicated to really providing you with the evidence-based information to really support your holistic weight loss journey and really wanting to make this weight loss journey kind of your final one, that you really get it and you get the principles of how to sustain that change in your weight that helps with your long-term health, your energy levels, your maybe joint pain, all sorts of things. But we know that weight can be a burden on our health, on our whole body. So we really want to support you in that holistic way, so that it is a successful journey for you. And sorry, I keep talking. Ruth, do say hello.
You're welcome. You're good. Hi everyone. I am Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. Absolutely love being involved in these webinars and meeting with you all just to help you on your journeys as much as possible. As Sam said, we are absolutely keen for you to grasp the reality of what being on a weight loss journey means, how we can get out of that yo-yo dieting trap, because we know for many, many people, the research tells us, we know from personal experience that actually maintaining that weight loss can be really tough and many people cycle round and round. If that's you, if this is a story you recognize, do please share anything you're happy to share. To let you know, we will come to a Q&A section after the slide share for anyone who's new to the webinars today. We're supported by Amar Sowar, who's here to support us with any IT problems that we have and to share polls. We'll be sharing a couple of polls with you, which are completely anonymous. And just for the purpose of questions, if you do have a question that you've brought along or that comes up for you today, do feel free to ask it. Pop it, if you can, into the Q&A box. If for any reason you can't find that, please pop it in the chat box and we'll do our best to search out your questions. If you've got any tips you'd like to share with one another, please do, because that is really, really helpful and very supportive of one another. And we know that in a community we do really well. And finally, just if you have a question that really sits outside the safety aspects of what we can safely answer as a medical lifestyle medicine team, then we'll just redirect your question and give you some advice as to who to seek that information from, because we need to stay safe for all of us. Great, so let's crack on. Why is this so important, Sam? Please do jump in and talk to us all about this.
Yeah, so today we want to really address this pattern of weight loss and weight regain, which is a very common pattern, as Ruth has already said today, and just reflecting on your own journey with weight loss, whether this has been part of your story in the past. It certainly has been part of mine. Um, and reflecting on how that cycle can make you feel, you know, and also thinking about what can we do to actually break this cycle and stop it happening again, and really examining the factors that feed into it. Okay. I imagine for most of us, when we are successfully losing weight, we feel really good. We feel really motivated, invigorated. We feel like we finally found that miracle diet that works for us, um, until we stop the diet and all that hard work kind of reverses itself and we go back to the position we started in often. So today we're going to look at the research about this phenomenon, about this cycling of making lots of changes, losing the weight only to regain it shortly afterwards. And research has told us that many people who lose weight will regain it eventually, but this is mainly because of this kind of spectre we have in this world of weight loss, this diet mindset, this I am on a diet, and therefore for this 3 month period, I will change, I will make these changes, I will lose the weight, and then I'm off a diet. So I can, go back to, I've lost the weight, I feel great, and then I can chuck everything out the window and go back. And then unfortunately, we will regain what we've lost, likely. Okay, so we have to bear that in mind because the research is quite discouraging, but we have to think about what our culture is like when we talk about diets. It tends to mean something temporary. It has these connotations of being almost punitive, kind of restrictive, and often in most cases, it will be doomed to failure because we have that impression of, oh, we're in this cage now for 3 months. It's really unpleasant. I'm on a diet. I can't enjoy anything and it's miserable, but I'm happy because I'm losing weight. So, what we are here to do is to break those chains, and really understand that this holistic lifestyle approach to food, to health, that is much more likely to lead to that long-term and sustainable weight loss that we really are aiming for, even if the initial drop in weight is a bit slower. And we want to talk to you about actually why that's a positive thing. So, without further ado, we shall move on to the next slide.
Great, thank you. Good thinking. So I think we'll launch our first poll here. So let's just launch that. Just let you know the polls are completely anonymous. We're just interested to hear from you. And please take a couple of minutes. We just want to know how relevant this subject is to everyone who's here today. So we're just asking you if you've lost weight in the past, whether you've gained it, and if you have regained it, what that story was. And really also starting to think today about how important this is for you and what are the things that trip you up? What gets in your way from making this, something that you in the past, because let's be hopeful that we can turn the tide now. We can learn our lessons, all of us, and we can sort of like learn what the research tells us, learn what the research tells us that can really help us make a change for the good and for the long term. I can see of those that you have answered, 97% of people, 98% of people have lost weight in the past and regained it. And of the people who've answered the poll, it's obviously really important for this to be a long-term fix now. We've had it, haven't we? We're done with the regain. We're done. I often think to myself, because I have lost weight, regained it several times, and I just think I've never actually sat down and calculated what that means I've lost in total. But I think I'd be really very sad if I did. So perhaps it's not worth doing that. But it would just be interesting to know, wouldn't it, how much effort that has been, how much this has taken of my mental energy. And now I think for all of us, it's time to let that mental energy have a break and actually just find some solutions that can work. So lots of you are saying that you've lost weight, regained it, put all the weight back on that you've lost. Say 36% of you have lost and put all the weight back on. 57% of you have put all the weight back on and more besides. And that's very, very common. The research tells us that this is a fact of weight loss. If we don't get our heads around this, and we can be in that risky situation. Emotional or stress eating are really up there in terms of what is having an impact on that weight regain. So let's think about that whole yo-yo dieting. As Sam's already said, lots of people find they put themselves in that mindset of being on a diet, no longer on a diet. And we know that actually for long-term weight loss, that sort of mental attitude, that decision to be on and off a diet makes weight loss sustainable, weight loss almost impossible, much, much harder. One of the reasons for that is when we're on that sort of like being in jail, as you put it, Sam, when you're in dietary jail and you're sort of like restricting away and you're sort of going without and you're not joining in. One of the known facts of that approach is that we'll often then lead off as soon as we're no longer on that diet into overeating or binge eating. It could even be that we have a bad day, something happens. People are saying in the poll that emotional eating is a big factor in weight regain. So it could be that something's tripped you up, something's happened in life, somebody's upset you, something's made you feel really happy. Your reward in life has been to reward yourself, whether it's a positive reward, a negative reward with food. And so you'll have something off-piste. You're in that dietary jail, and so what happens when you go off piece, and I think you all know this, is it will just lead you to feeling so bad about yourself because you've suddenly no longer on a diet that actually you lose it. You lose that focus, you lose the momentum, and hey presto, you're back in that negative loop and you spiral back down again or spiral back up again. So we want you to move away 100% from that sort of whole dietary mindset. We want you to start thinking about lifestyle. And why lifestyle medicine is so important is because actually we need to all of us focus on a lifestyle that's sustainable and something that we can turn up and do 90, 80, 90% of the time. We talk about the sort of 80% approach to weight loss, and that is absolutely crucial. If we can find a way that's sustainable for each of us individually to do 80% of the time, and 20% of the time we allow ourselves to have a little treat or a day off or have some holiday time with the family, but we get back into that 80% mindset. That is the way forward. That is what we want for all of you. We want you to be changing your thinking. And we know that that can really help us get out of that trap. It's also really important to recognize that if we lose weight really speedily, then one of the consequences of that fast weight loss is that we will lose muscle as well as fat. And one of the things that we want to do when we're losing weight for health reasons is generally lose fat. We want to maintain our muscle. Muscle has many, many roles in terms of a healthy body. One of the key things in terms of weight management is that metabolically, it is much more active than fat. It will burn more calories than fat will. So we want our muscle to turn up and be there. We don't want to get rid of it. So this is why slow and steady weight loss is really important, because in that process, we can maintain our muscle mass. And the problem for many people, including myself and Sam, is if you've lost weight and regained it, and you've lost weight quickly and then regained it quickly, you will not only have lost muscle in that process of the weight loss, but when you regain, you won't be regaining muscle, you'll be regaining fat. So that means that your metabolic rate is less because your whole body, the composition of your body has shifted. You've got a little bit more fat mass than you had before. So therefore, you'll find that you'll go back to eating what you ate before, and suddenly that doesn't work for you anymore. You can't maintain your old weight. You'll gain weight, and you'll gain weight more than you did before because actually your body is less metabolically active. It's quite a weird one to get our heads around, but I think it's such an important point, isn't it, Sam? Does that
I think
make
it
sense?
explains a lot, doesn't it? To me anyway. Please do ask us questions if you're finding this confusing, because some of it is a little bit scientific, I guess. All metabolism is the rate at which your body burns energy, which we measure in calories. Okay. So your muscle burns energy when, as fuel, when you're sat watching Netflix, it will, when you're asleep, your muscle will be burning calories. Okay. Fat tissue, not so much. Okay. So we really want to focus preserving our gorgeous muscle tissue and getting rid of the fat tissue that is not helping us so much. Okay.
Right.
Fat tissue has its own benefits as well, but I think we all know that when we have a little bit too much, we want to get rid. Okay. But we don't want to demonize any part of our bodies either. Okay. But we want to preserve our magical muscle tissue. Okay. And a
And
lot of us miss this point, right, when we're losing weight. Sorry,
yeah, no, there's
sorry,
just
Ruth.
a question that's really pertinent. Somebody saying, can we build it back? Absolutely, we'll go into that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a brilliant question, as you say. Really good, because it's not all is not lost, but just we're going to talk about how we maintain what we already have. And yes, absolutely, how to build muscle back, which obviously will take some input from us. Just a little bit more about basically what Ruth said, why it can be easy to regain the weight. So, if we've lost a lot of weight, our bodies need less energy because actually we're carrying less mass around, okay? And in the short term, when we lose weight, the amount of energy to fuel our bodies is reduced, but our appetite is also affected. So, in the short term, you are going to feel more hungry. And this is all to do with the set point theory, which we will talk about in a minute. It's widely accepted now. Um, this is why changing relationship with food and also hydration is so important because when you've lost the weight, your food and energy intake needs to reduce in the short and the long term. Okay. When we lose weight, it's thought that our survival mechanisms kick in and trigger hunger, okay? Because your body thinks it's not going to have enough fuel to survive, all right? It's been used to a certain amount of fuel and burning it at a certain rate because there's plenty coming in. But then when we reduce that amount of fuel or food, as we say, we the body is confused because the body is this incredible yet primal piece of, I don't like using the word machinery, but I can't think of a different one in this moment. But it's a pretty sophisticated bit of kit, but it is used to, it was designed a very long time ago when there were things like, big droughts and, we didn't have food on every street corner and, such access to nourishment and fuel. Okay. So your body is trying to keep everything, it's called homeostasis. We're trying to keep everything the same, basically, in the body. All the levels of electrolytes in your body, the metabolism stable, the way that you're burning your calories, and this is all a very delicate system. It's trying to maintain balance, essentially. Um, so we have to work with our physiology and know what to expect and know what is normal to expect. Um, We also know that weight loss and restrictive dieting have been found to suppress the thyroid hormones. Okay. And if the thyroid hormones are low, that also leads to a reduction in our metabolic rate, so our resting energy use, and result that can also contribute to that weight regain. We talked about losing muscle tissue, um, meaning that we will reduce our metabolic rate also. So basically, when you have less muscle tissue, your body needs, because that metabolic rate or those muscles burn so many calories just at rest, we when there's less of it, the body needs fewer calories, right? This is why we really talk about gradual, steady weight loss because it allows your body that time to rebalance along the way rather than having a big drop in weight that doesn't allow your body to adjust. It just kind of goes into a bit of a panic, survival mode. Let's conserve everything we can because we don't know where our next um, fuel source is going to come from. Okay, I hope that that is really clear. Um, I hope that's really clear. We're going to talk more, but do ask any questions.
Yes, I thought we thought it would be really helpful to talk a little bit about this whole set point theory because, as Sam was saying, it's sort of like a recognized element of weight management. So, one of the things about a set point is our body will strive because we are a very sort of primate being still, even though we've developed massively as a society, as a body, our physical body hasn't really changed that much, really and truly. So one of the things that we try and do within our body is to maintain a stable weight, and that's for protection. It's for all of the positive elements that used to be recognized for. But as we gain weight, our body set point will change, so we can recalibrate our set point up, and this can becomes our sort of new recognized place that our body feels that we should be at. This is where we should stay. This is where we're safe. This is keeping us where we need to be. So one of the things that will happen when we lose weight, if we've lost a significant amount of weight, then we will find that we get stuck and we get into a plateau, and that can be really, really frustrating. We know that. But what we now understand with caught in this whole set point theory is that plateauing is a really normal part of our process, and we must stall. We have to have these processes, these times of our weight loss stalling, not moving anywhere, where we're recalibrating, we're bringing our set point back down a little bit. So actually that stalling is a really positive thing. It is a helpful stage in terms of rebalancing our body's expectation of where our weight should be, where we should sit. And so never be scared by a weight loss plateau. Actually just recognize it as a really positive step in progression and your body doing that readjustment. We can absolutely bring our set points down, but we know psychologically plateaus can be really difficult. We can find it very demoralizing. It can really undermine how we feel about ourselves. I saw a comment that we will pick up on that was in the chat box about, having a buzz of losing weight and actually then feeling really negative when that weight loss isn't happening. We'll pick up on your comment because there's obviously a lot of support that could be helpful for you to be thinking about. But that's a really good point. We have that buzz, we feel like we're succeeding, we get that sense of success. It makes us feel like we're achieving something that we want to achieve. When we see things just sitting still and it's not what we want to see, it can make us feel very demoralized, can't it? So we need to be thinking about that. The whole point about that set point is that we almost need to almost set our expectations that we lose some weight, that we then plateau for a little while, then we take the next step in the weight loss game. So it's sort of like a down and a cross and a down. If you think about a graph, you'd be moving in steps, you'd be walking down a staircase. So you get to a plateau at the top of the raft and you stick there and then you go down your next step. So really think about that. We also know that weight loss can be a bit of a stressor physiologically for our body. And so, one of the things that can happen is we can get a little bit of an increase in cortisol. And we know that cortisol can be a factor in difficulty in losing weight. So, we also know that one of the things that happens in this whole journey, and I think we're going to pick up on this in a little bit, is that our hunger can increase while we lose weight. So we can get this compensatory increase in appetite. And this is all caught up in this set point because our body is trying to nudge us back up to our old set point. So it has this parameter built in. It's like a protective mechanism. So we almost have to reweight our portion sizes. We need to really focus on. We need to really be mindful in terms of what we're eating. We need to eat in a way which is conducive to our digestion working well for us. But also we need to be really on it in terms of not trusting everything that we're feeling in our bodies when we're in this process. All of those physiological responses will settle down in time, generally speaking, but you have to go through this sort of like really agitated, uncomfortable space in the middle, I would say. What do you think, Sam?
I think, yeah, I think you're right. But I do think also really looking at what we eat, because we'll all be very different and at different points on our journeys. And some of us may really have embraced a whole food diet. Some of us are still, a bit cautious and hanging back and thinking, okay, could I really do this? Could I give up X, Y, and Z? So I think it's not all, this is the physiology, and there are ways to look at when we talk about blood sugar balance, for example, which is a big factor in cravings and what we eat and how it impacts our appetite over the day. There are many things that impact appetite, is kind of what I wanted to say. And, having protein on your plate, having a good amount of fiber and a diverse array of vegetables on the plate also will all help to really offset some of that increase in appetite because you might be eating in a very different way than you have before. Having a bit, having those a few new potatoes rather than a big jacket potato, for example. There are various things that we can support you with. That will help your appetite in this time where we know that you will feel a bit hungrier. Okay. So how to stop um, this yo-yo cycle because it really isn't much fun. And I think it can, as Ruth has already said, it can be really dejecting. But thinking about that loss of weight in that stepwise fashion, that, very few things in life are a straight line from A to B. Okay. And what can really help us on that journey is remembering why we're doing this in the first place. Okay. So having a really strong this mindset, this anchor that we set right at the beginning, or even if you've started and you haven't set it, it's never too late. Think about why you're doing this in the first place, because we know that a weight loss journey can present challenges. It's not always easy. Some days will be far easier than others. Okay. But why are you doing it? And see if you can find that motivation as something deeply, something that connects with you on an emotional level. Okay. The example I often use is, you know, my wife, I would like to be stronger, fitter, lighter, so I can run around with my children with zero joint pain. Okay, so I want to be pain free. You know, that could be your why, and I would didn't phrase it in a very good way then, but phrasing it in a positive way rather than I don't want pain, I want ease of movement. I want energy. I want to feel lighter in my body. I want to feel really positive about my health going forward. So many things, and we each have our own stories, and I'm sure that all of us here have a deep reason. And it's really worth spending a bit of time, maybe just journaling or just writing down a few ideas, reflecting on whether you've ever thought of that as like a deep reason for something that is long term. So, you know, some of us might be like, okay, so and so's wedding in a few months' time. I want to drop a few dress sizes to look fabulous. That's fair enough. I would go with something deeper than that. Why do you want to look fabulous for this wedding or generally in life, or why, you know, this whole um the inner journey that you want to be on for and that weight loss is a part of. So just have a really good think about it because this is an anchor. This is what can you can come back to when you have a wobble, when you're on that stepwise change, and maybe you're in the middle of a plateau and you just think, I'm doing everything right, and I just feel like my body refuses to lose any more weight. This is so frustrating, you know, and you're kind of tearing your hair out. Come back to the why, come back to that and realize why you're doing this and understanding that you're in a plateau phase. That's okay. It's actually a really good sign. It means that your body is recalibrating and it's moving the set point, it's moving the needle. It doesn't happen overnight. It can take a little while. But you know, we really want to hopefully this knowledge manages your stress to some level because it can be very stressful when you're doing everything right and it's still not the, you know, the scales aren't changing. But this is the reason that we really advocate that slow and steady loss. Okay. You know, I've already talked about protein, colourful veg, low GI, so we're sort of lowering the carbohydrates that we're taking in just to really ease off the cravings that we can get when we have a more high carbohydrate diet, okay, and that we're not taking care of the protein. The protein also supports our muscles, so we want to be taking in that protein. And it can be animal sources, it can be vegetarian sources as well. And we have a fabulous protein document that we can share with you all about sources of protein. Um, yes, so yeah, that's great. Please do ask questions. Sorry, also reading the chat and the questions at the same time, but we will come to the questions right at the end.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think it's really important to also be thinking about all of the other factors that it's not just the food, it's all of our other factors. If we're in a plateau, then it is all of the factors that we talk about across the series of the webinar and the 10-week weight loss program. It's sort of all about managing stress, managing your sleep, managing, the tricky things in life, really, how well you move. So I guess really we talk a lot about food in our webinars. So I think it's really helpful to sit and think for a little while, maybe after the webinar, maybe sometime over the next week, and to really think about what your relationship is with food, because I think we all need to, food has become such a big thing in our society. We are literally being bombarded with information about food all of the time. We're being told all sorts of amazing claims about certain food products that are going to make us feel amazing, keep us youthful, help us lose weight, whatever it is. And that whole food restriction that many of us have put ourselves in that situation of can lead us to a really different relationship with food, almost where the reward value of food becomes even greater. And if you've been depriving yourself, it's much more likely that at some point you are going to do that whole overeating. You're going to get that rebound additional hunger. And that whole process can lead you into a situation where really the foods that you're going to be craving for, or the foods that you're going to want, are going to be those high sugar, high calorie, high fat foods. The research tells us 100% if we get into this deprivation mindset and we're feeling like we're really losing out, The thing we're going to go for isn't the more broccoli stalks, it's not more tomatoes, it's going to be the pastries, the cookies, the chocolate, the whatever gummy bears that you enjoy. We know that weight loss can really be one of those things that triggers overeating. So we want you to get over that as much as possible. So, what can we do instead? We need to be really mindful in our approach to how we eat. We need to learn new rules. We need to learn to love the food that loves us back. That is absolutely crucial. There are certain foods I now eat and enjoy that if you'd asked me 5 or 10 years ago, I wouldn't have touched. I would have just thought, yuck, they're not for me. And actually, you can change your taste buds. And I think that's something we don't think we can do. Like, if you have this sweet tooth preference, that's only really come about because you have eaten those foods and you have given your taste buds that taste. So your reception of food is to want a preference for sweeter foods. It's very, very much when we're born, when we're sort of weaning, and when we're learning as children to eat foods, our palate is really there to be sort of educated, and we can do that. We can readjust our taste buds so we can actually relearn. We can relearn and get rid of that very sweet tooth. And the way that we can do that is through sort of retraining our expectations, giving ourselves different food, and really allowing some adjustment to happen, and really sort of being mindful in that process as well. So I think it's really important. We also talked a few weeks ago about self-sabotage, and this is something to be really wary of because that is one of the things that can get in our way and can undermine our success. And if we have a lack of self-belief, or we really struggle to believe that we can overcome these plateaus, or we can get around this whole yo-yo dieting, or we sort of like set ourselves up to believe that we can lose weight, but we're always going to put it back on again. Sam, this is absolutely your area of expertise. But it's sort of like the mindset, what we believe, the stories that we tell ourselves are what we become. So if we tell ourselves
Absolutely.
we're going to regain that weight because we always have, I can guarantee you will regain the weight. So we need to also re-educate and catch ourselves in the moment of our self-beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves. It isn't necessarily what we verbalize, it's the sort of what's going on in our head, in our subconscious. We really need to challenge that. I think it's such an important point, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we need to really keep an eye on this journey that can present so many challenges. Our own inner dialogue can really be our biggest cheerleader, or our worst enemy in a sense. And it's up to us to make those changes. And sometimes I saw a question earlier on, a coach can really help us, someone to keep us accountable, even a close friend or someone that lives in your household that can help keep you accountable and keep you on that path of really focusing on you and doing this for you and doing this because you're worth it, and that the story doesn't have to be the same. You can rewrite the story. We are all the authors of our own journey, of our own story, and it doesn't have to have the same outcome. We can do something differently. The fact that you guys are even here listening to this webinar, it really shows that you care, that you want to understand, that you maybe have fallen into this trap before and you don't want to again. Thank you very much, because it's not fun. It can be really, really hard. And we really want to appreciate that, we're not saying by any means that what we're preaching is the easiest thing in the world. There will be times of real challenge, but hopefully we are equipping you with the information and strategies to support you every step of the way. Um, and this slide is all about, so many of us, me included, will snack on something maybe sweet, maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's crisps, whatever it is, that when we're feeling a bit glum and something has happened and you just feel a bit stressed, or you're a bit tired, or fed up, or what have you, we might want to pick me up with something to eat. Okay. But what else could we do? We can think of other things that can boost our mood. And that could be, we've introduced this concept of a self-care basket before, and it's having like a little jar or a basket that's got some things that you enjoy doing, things that aren't food related that you enjoy. So they could be like little slips of paper that have things on them, like tasks or activities that you like, and could be, maybe you like doing puzzles, crosswords, crochet, maybe you like going for a walk, maybe you love having a bath. Maybe you want to go and stroke your pets. I definitely find I have pets and they always bring a smile to my face and make me happy. And they're such mood boosters for me. Journaling is a great one, really exploring what's going on for you right now and kind of that inner exploration can really help shed that light of awareness on what might be going on for you in that moment of um, slight wobble on your journey. Okay. I think we talked about the 80-20 rule before. I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's a great strategy. It's a great strategy once you're already quite happy that you know where you are, the food preferences that really support you, you enjoy, and that seem to really support your body and your journey. So I wouldn't start from the very beginning at 80-20. I'd probably be really trying to focus on sort of knuckling down and understanding the Mediterranean diet or a low GI approach or that sort of thing, or even the core meal plan, which we can share in the chat with you, just so you've got the basics of it first before you start bringing in that little bit of leeway into the 80-20 rule, just to mention that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked this through. So let's just think about nourish. Nourish is so important. We can nourish ourselves not just with food, but in many, many ways. So, how do you nourish yourself? And I talk to a lot of people about weight management, and I talk to many, many people really. And actually, what I have realized, and I think I can count myself in this, there are times for all of us when food becomes such a focus that it's the only thing in our life that actually gives us a sense of pleasure. And I think if that is where you're sitting at the moment, then it's time to really think, okay, what else can I do in my life? Like Sam was saying, what other acts can I do that are going to make me feel happy? Because we can't keep, if we're always turning to food to give us that sort of dopamine fix or to give us a sense of happiness, it's going to make it really hard to make this something that sticks. So I would say, in terms of nourishing, we want to really tune into our appetite. We want to recognize that when we lose weight, our appetite will go through some really tricky challenges for us. So one of the things is almost as well about creating rules, a bit like you were saying, Sam, learn the foods that actually are great for you to eat regularly. Learn the foods that are going to be there to support your health in the long run. My recommendation is that we all try not to snack as much as possible between meals because I think that is one of the things that really can play havoc in terms of creating that insulin sensitivity that we need to all gather and gain. And really, it's about creating those healthy habits for life. So, if you're eating in between meals every time we eat, or every time we have a cup of coffee with some milk in, it is going to need our body to release some insulin to mop up the sugar, to stop that sort of whole cascade of sort of blood sugar imbalance. So, we want to maintain sort of gaps. It really helps with our digestion, it really helps with insulin sensitivity. We were asked, I think we'll talk about how to create muscle mass, but the things that we can do to really help sort of rebuild our muscle if we have lost muscle in the past are things like making sure you've got your protein nailed on your plate. So follow the core meal plan, get that 1 gram per kilogram of body weight of protein as a minimum per day and divide that into your 3 meals. That's really important. The other things that can really help in terms of supporting a healthy metabolism are making sure that we are eating a sort of real whole food diet because we want those other nutrients. We don't just create amino acids from protein alone. We need other nutrients to be packaged in. So you want to be eating whole foods as well and a little bit of healthy sort of whole grains for energy for ourselves and those healthy fats, which is why that core meal plan is so important. And then stress management, really important, and sleep. We've talked about those. We've got whole webinars on those, and they're really, really, really crucial. It's not one thing. And then that whole resistance exercise is sort of about building muscles, building strength. Those are the important components. And if you do all of those things and you turn up and you do those regularly, you will switch your body composition around and it will really help maintain your weight in the long, long run. And this is crucial, really, really crucial. I think we can't say it strongly enough, can we? We've got our final poll, which we're going to release, I think, as well now. And then, Sam, you've just got one more slide to talk through. We'll tell you when our next webinars are. The good news is we're hoping to run them all across the summer now. And we feel like that would be a great thing to be doing. So we're aiming to do that, aren't we, Sam?
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be here through August. So this is just the final slide of the presentation about community. So we know from the research that belonging to a supportive community has been found to be one of the most positive behaviors that you can engage with to help you with long-term and sustained weight loss. And that could be the community at your local leisure centre. It can be within your family. It could be a Facebook group. It could be, an accountability partner, maybe a neighbor on your road that, you're both like, okay, going to support each other. So it's a touch point really with a like-minded soul or a group. And we really want to kind of try and provide this for you. So watch this space. But there's more and more evidence that group support is very beneficial for weight loss. And as someone else mentioned earlier in the presentation, coaching can be super supportive and just keep you on that focused journey. Um, so I can see that you're all answering the poll. Thank you so much. Um, Great. So lots of you are thinking about meal planning and prep. Amazing. Practicing mindful eating to manage portion size. It's such a simple thing, but really, really, really effective actually, because we just so many of us, and I am certainly guilty of this, like, if we eat in front of the TV or, if we're just completely distracted as we're eating, we can tend to just overeat and we go past that level of being comfortably full. Um, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but there's also that whole I won't go too much off on a tangent, but that old pattern of clean your plate, of eating everything that's on the plate, but actually recognizing with that mindful eating when you're full, and it doesn't matter if there's still food on the plate, that can go in a Tupperware and you can have it tomorrow. We don't have to finish everything on the plate. I definitely grew up with that instruction from my parents that I had to eat everything that I was served, and I get it. They didn't know any better, but it can lead us into this not very helpful pattern in adulthood, especially when we're battling weight. So next sessions, Ruth has popped them up on the screen. We look forward to seeing you again next week at another presentation, but we were going to quickly go to your questions. Is there anything more to say about the poll? It's a good even split actually of everything. People want to stay hydrated, keep active, keep a clear focus. Yeah, sleep and stress also in there, and cravings. Having a look, I know that we've shared the core eating plan that can really help to understand how to build your plate and how to really ease off those cravings and the kind of snacking over the day as much as is possible.
Great. I'm going to jump in with our first question. Thank you, Sam. So somebody is asking how long a plateau might take. I think you mean how long is it going to last for? And I think from working here in this team, I've seen people being in plateaus for weeks, if not 2 or 3 months, which can be quite some significant amount of time. There is no defined, as far as I know, I've not seen any research. Have you, Sam? No defined amount of
No,
time.
I can, yeah, sometimes it's sort of 5, 6 weeks in a calorie deficit before you start seeing something. And I don't like talking about calories, but if you're having that reduced intake for that long before you start seeing a big difference. Um, but again, yeah, don't be dejected. The plateau phase is really vital and it will impact everybody at some stage, and it is important to just stick with it, stick with the changes, stick with your why, remember why you're doing this in the first place. Um,
It's a
yeah.
really good point. Not many people are going to slide through this process without hitting a plateau. It's a very, very good point. Question about how does poor sleep hygiene cause weight gain? We had a whole webinar on sleep last week, so there will be a recording of that. So, Amar, Seba, could you possibly share the link for the YouTube previous recordings? And then you should be able to dig that out and listen to that or watch the webinar. There's also a podcast series, so we have a whole podcast as well on sleep and how that might impact weight. Um, great. Sam, do you want to dig one out?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, some interesting questions. Let's see. So someone's asked, do you think supplementing weight loss with other approaches like counselling or coaching is worthwhile, particularly for those who have lost regained? Obviously, a different approach needed not to repeat previous cycles. So I hope that what we've talked about today will really help you not to repeat previous cycles. I think coaching can be brilliant, and actually um, from what we've seen, it almost doubles the success rate with when you're supported by a coach. Um, Counseling can be really helpful if you know that there are reasons, and I would definitely support that. If you know there are reasons why you maybe overeat or comfort eat or even have kind of dysregulated ways of eating, counseling can really help you unpick that. And I would advise someone who specializes in kind of eating behaviors to support you with that. I think it can be really powerful. So I think it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And I
Really?
think you
Yeah.
know, it's worth doing these things and unpicking them because, if we can sort of do all the doing, fine. But if internally, there are these sort of unresolved patterns of behavior and emotion, that's what can kind of derail us. It can happen again, if we haven't dealt with those sort of core issues. So, great
Yeah.
question.
And the sort of whole binge eating, not a binge eating disorder, but the sort of like overeating, the patterns of overeating can really get in people's way. I think we're hoping to bring on board one of our other team members of the team in October and do a whole webinar on binge eating and how to, how to recognize it, how to overcome it. But we're in the process of considering that and considering the important things to include in that. But it will be really interesting, I'm sure helpful to lots of people. Um, Somebody is saying, I've heard that each time you regain weight as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to lose weight. Is that true? I think in part, yes, and in part, no. I think for all the reasons we've talked about today, our body composition can shift adversely. So what that means is we can end up with a higher fat mass than we had before we started that whole process of losing and regaining weight. And if that then changes and we have a higher fat mass and a lower muscle mass, metabolically, we have less calories available to us before we start gaining weight. And that can make that whole cycle really difficult because you can just keep spiraling your calorie needs lower. So actually, no, the flip side of the coin is if you do everything we talk about in our webinars, the reason we've got these amazing webinars and the reason why there's a whole load of different topics is because each and every one of those topics might not be relevant to you, but each and every one of those topics is relevant to someone at some point in their weight loss journey and to many people in their weight loss journey. So it's not just about food, it's not just about sleep, it is about stress, it is about your cravings, it is about managing all of those things, your body composition, about being active. For each and every one of us, we will have our Achilles heels, won't we? There will be certain things that we need to put more attention in on. So just work out what those are and do those things. You don't have to be perfect. Do one thing at a time. I think it's really important. Sorry, get off
Absolutely.
my soapbox now. Um, is having big muscles, this is a classic question. I love it. Is having big muscles better than strong muscles? No. Strong always wins. Would you agree, Sam?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we can, and we will be at all levels of ability here, if we can put some energy into resistance training, and if that for you is, weightlifting or, strength building, core conditioning is possible for you, fantastic. Building muscle, someone asked earlier, yes, you can build muscle tissue, and that would be fantastic because being a stronger human makes life much easier in so many ways, can support joints that are painful, etc., can support your bone strength, etc. As we're all, no one is getting any younger here, so we can support ourselves with building a strong musculature, and it doesn't mean that we're big muscle men and strutting about the place. It doesn't have to be like that. Finding a space where you feel comfortable to do any kind of resistance training is really important because a lot of us will not want to be going into a gym where everyone's posing in front of mirrors. I totally understand that, but there will be this weight loss thing is pretty common, and there will be lots of people who want to increase their fitness, increase their muscle mass in a safe and supportive environment. So I would really be looking around at the leisure centres or the gyms near you that are looking to support those individuals or to give you a gentle start because it might not be in anybody, in your particular wheelhouse at the moment, and it all sounds a bit intimidating. One step at a time. Okay, one step at a time for everybody. And body weight exercises at home with a video. We have a fantastic set of exercise videos. They're just healthy movement, and there's all different abilities on there. Amma, if you could please share the link to the video, the exercise videos. Have a look because again, focus is on some resistance. It could be, for example, a body weight squat or push-ups against the wall. That is building muscle tissue. So it doesn't have to be anything dramatic or gym based. It can be in the comfort of your own home.
Very much. Great question, Ben. You've asked in the chat box if there's no reflections on how people slept or what they did with their sleep. So do you share anything you are happy to share with us on how your sleep has been over the last week? Actually, I have to share that I went to bed really early a couple of nights and I cannot believe how much more refreshed I felt. And it was significantly earlier. So, and it really made a difference to how my brain worked for me the next day. So it's definitely really worth doing. Um, Calories, a couple of questions about calories that have come into the chat box. Why don't we like talking about them? And somebody is saying also that I've just seen this one. Should you reduce calories while in a plateau? Really great questions. And also, Amar, if you could possibly share the link to the core meal plan and the Mediterranean diet again, that'd be really helpful because somebody's asked for that in the questions. Um, cool. So calories, Sam, we really don't like calories, do we? Because not all calories are equal. I think that's where we start with this story. They can be helpful in the short term to track, but the research tells us, and I think we know from talking to a lot of people, that people get bored of tracking calories. And actually, it's not something that you're going to do for life, generally speaking, unless you really are somebody who loves a spreadsheet and you love numbers and you love that sort of techie side of life. The vast majority of people are much better off just redefining which foods turn up and help them be healthy. And I think that's what we're keen for you to learn. Would you agree, Sam? Anything you want to add?
Um, yeah, absolutely, Ruth. I think you've said it beautifully.
Yeah, just redefine what real food is, I think. Get your head around real food and make that the majority of what you eat. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It might mean you have to learn to throw some food together. You don't have to be a gourmet chef. I think, we
Absolutely.
we get scared, but actually food is just food, isn't it? It is really not as challenging as we sometimes think. Is there a place in our body where we lose fat first, and where last? I think for women, generally, people always say that they find it really hard to lose their weight around their middles and around their tummies, and they find that really frustrating. I don't know, if there are specifically places we lose fat first. I can't remember if there are. Any thoughts on that, Sam?
Um, I anecdotally notice that people tend to lose it around sort of the like the face and sort of you know, upper part, upper chest quite early on. That is not based on any evidence. That is based on anecdotally working in weight loss. Um, but yeah, that's a very good question and maybe something that we can look at
I
and
will
come back
look.
to you with an
I'm
answer.
gonna, yeah, I will have a look over the next few days and see if I can find an answer as to whether there's any scientific evidence of where people lose weight. But also from a stress perspective, I've really started looking at that somatic yoga as to whether it can help calm that stress response down. And I think things like meditation and certain types of yoga can help. So if stress is something that is getting in your way, that's again something worth looking at. Somebody's asking about timing for exercise. I think it's about when it fits in your day. And in terms of food and timing around food, I think my recommendation is to try and do something that helps our muscles to work after we eat, because that can really help in terms of insulin sensitivity. We have these funny little things which are insulin sensitivity receptors in our muscles. So if we use our muscles after food, it can help with insulin stability and blood glucose stability. So there would be some sense in doing something, even if it's just a few squats after a meal or some arm raises or some press ups or something, just to use those muscles. If you're doing more intense exercise, if you're doing some real HIIT or some cardiovascular exercise, you may want to time that differently. And then you want to make sure that whatever you're doing in terms of that timing is not affecting your quality of sleep and your ability to get sleep. So some people might find a really intensive exercise session in the evening is going to really disturb their ability to sleep. So we're all different. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? There are no absolutes. Somebody's asking, Charlotte, you're asking for tips for your ADHD brain. That is another webinar we are hoping to create at some point in the future. I'm actually going to a whole day about ADHD in terms of nutrition at the weekend. So it's not going to be any time in the next few weeks because it takes us quite a long time to get these things sorted and to make sure that we're all happy with the content. But we will put that on our absolute priority list because I know many people would really like that. Yeah. And I noticed also a couple of questions about previous webinars and whether we recycle webinars. Yes, we will. The cycle, there's probably about 13 or 14 webinars now, I think, in this series, and we tend to roll them around. There are a few that are more popular that we probably put on a little bit more frequently, just because they're sort of like the core. But apart from that, they generally follow the same pattern, so we tend to roll around those.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just thinking, because there's a few resources that we haven't quite managed to get around and share today, but I'm going to just share this link um, in the chat just so that you can access instantly the 10-week weight loss program, which is completely free. And if you scroll down, all the resources, all the PDFs that we've created painstakingly, Mediterranean diet, low carb approach,
Yeah.
protein sources, all of those things, they're underneath, for example, that those would all be in the week 2, which will all be about food. Okay, so those resources are there for you completely free. Please use them. And of course, we've got the podcast, the
And the
10-week weight
tracker
loss course. Sorry.
app.
Oh, and the
Right.
tracker, of
Okay.
course. I don't know, Amma, have you got a link to the tracker app? If you are a Boots Online Doctor customer, you are very free to sign up to it and to use it. It's a really helpful tool, a little aid memoir for you because it will give you like it's sort of a gamified way of like recording your steps, your water intake, your fruit and veg intake, that kind of thing, just as a way to keep track and also tracking your weight, which you might want to do once a week, once every couple of weeks, that's fine, but really it's those habits over the day that we're really looking to change. So
Yeah.
have a little
A
look there, um
couple of
and we
quick
will be.
questions.
Oh,
So
more
somebody's
questions.
saying, yeah, somebody's asking if you only change your set point during a plateau. No, not at all. You're changing your set point all the way through that journey. But the set point is just the recalibration, we believe, from all of the research we've read. So that's our understanding. Somebody's saying they drink a lot of tea with milk in every day, maybe about 8 mugs. Is that something that would be helpful to consider and change? Yes, I would say my short answer to that, I don't know if you agree, Sam, is probably yes. Tea, lots of caffeine could have quite an impact on your cortisol production, your blood sugar management, and then all of the sort of like added little milk. It's a food, isn't it? So I think in terms of that insulin response, it might be worth putting the tea around meals and getting some sort of like fruit teas or herbal teas out and enjoying those between meals or just good old water. We love water, so give that a go. Hopefully that's helpful.
So in general, someone's asked about effective exercise to lose weight around the hips. um I mean, that's quite a difficult thing to advise on because there won't be an exercise that makes you lose weight in a specific area. Exercises will help you build muscle in that area if you wanted to work on your your quads or your hamstrings or your glutes or what have you, then you can do, squats, that sort of thing. But it won't specifically, so exercise doesn't really target weight loss. It will target muscle development. So yeah, I don't think I can really expand on that further. And we know that we talk a lot about food because nutrition is the biggest factor on how we lose weight, but how we maintain it is really going to be down to our metabolism. What are we doing to maintain our metabolism? That's why we talk so much about resistance training, if we can. And training sounds intimidating, but just doing resistance movements, being less sedentary. We are all at different levels in our mobility, in our levels of fitness. We just start from where we are. Okay. And the link that I shared on the chat about I shared a couple there, but one is for the new healthy movement videos that we've got. They're hot off the press. They're really good. They're very accessible. So have a look and see if you can incorporate some of this movement over your day. I know all of us, including me, including Ruth, have pretty sedentary lives because we're based on computers these days, and that is unfortunate. It's the way the world is going, but we need to be aware that our bodies need movement, and sedentariness is really not good for so many things, like our cortisol level, like our joint health, like um, our appetite, like our muscles. We have yeah, not positive things from sitting all day. So yeah, on that note, I think we'd probably better wrap up.
Yeah, very much so. I was just going to try and dig out the feedback form. If I
Oh
could
yes.
quickly find a link, that would be helpful. Don't know if we've got one, if you've got one, but I have found one. So give me a
Ah,
second. We would really love your feedback. We just want to know from you what you would like from us, whether what we're giving you is meeting your needs, if there's anything else you can think of that we could add to what we're providing. We're 100% here for you. And we want this to be something that makes a difference for you. So anything you'd like to let us know, that would be absolutely helpful for us. So thank you. And thank you for your time. We know that you're giving up your time to be here with us. We're back next week. Sam, you're back next week and you're going to be
I'm
talking
back with
all
Sarah, Dr.
about
Sarah, as well.
the gut microbiome, which is just,
Oh,
and how that makes such
yes.
a difference to our weight management. So very
Yes,
trendy and exciting topic.
absolutely. Right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Best of luck over the week to come. Um, and I hope that those resources that we've shared are helpful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much,
And
everybody.
do let us know next week how you got on over this week. We're keen to hear from you and to build that accountability in as well. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.